Thank God you're recording this, Josh. This is gold.
It is.
Welcome to the FreeManCast.
Aboard a boat, unfortunately not a builder boat, but aboard a boat on Lake Geneva. Now I feel like I'm getting the true Bilderberg experience. The conference is over, but we've got a little wine and the lake. And I'm joined by none other than the Charlie Skelton. Because I mean, you're no longer the Guardian's Charlie Skelton.
I'm just a Charlie Skelton.
How many Charlie Skeltons are there? So Charlie, what's it like to be living the Bilderberg life, the high life, or is this the high life?
Oh, it's not cheap, I tell you that. Although this is about the second glass of wine I've had since I'm here, because I just can't afford to eat or drink in Switzerland, and also the food's terrible. So fortunately, it's so expensive I can't afford to buy it.
That's the case for me as well. I've been eating out of the supermarket. I did find one glass of wine at this random roadside grill that we stopped at on the way back from the airport. Right. That was like four francs, really? but it was also about this much wine. I mean,
this is my main takeaway from the whole Bilderberg conference is how hard it is to get a cheap glass of wine.
Yeah, if we get this glass at my hotel, let's say, what it'll ring you like 10 francs or what?
Something like that.
Switzerland is not cheap. Montreux is not cheap at all.
And this conference must have cost. I was walking past the Montreux Palace Hotel, and I don't know how many days they had it for, from whatever it was, Wednesday. It was still shut on Monday. And it's a huge hotel. It must have cost a fortune. The Kudelski Group, I think, can afford it, but still.
You have any estimate, any guesstimate about how much?
I would say more than £100.
More than £100 what per?
No, the whole thing must have cost more than £100. I mean, look at it.
Oh well, excuse my American English. You mean 100,000?
No, I don't know what it is. It must have cost millions, but certainly more than 100.
Well, everything here costs more than it costs £100 to breathe here in Montreux. Anyway, so it was ridiculously expensive, and I thought at the beginning they were going to eat in the Petit Palais right across the street from the, and I guess they did for lunch.
Yes, I think so.
But I wasn't expecting a castle dinner.
Yeah, the banquet. Well, they did a banquet dinner in Dresden where they.
I was there for that.
I remember the walk of shame.
But in Dresden, the castle was right next to the hotel.
Yeah. Well, not quite. They had to walk across that strange sort of cobbled yard,
which was a pity for some of them. Kissinger really heard it.
Yeah, that was extraordinary. The wall of sound, it sounded a bit like that. A wall of sound hit Henry Kissinger. I think it was so loud, the kind of howls from behind the fence, the kind of Hunger Games style crowd, that it must have kept him alive for another 3-4 years. Just the sheer energy he received from that.
So what's going through his mind and body when that happens? He feeds off of all that hatred, or what?
Well, that was look. It was certainly the case in America. He kept going in and out of the gates one year in Chantilly, and he just kept looking out of the window and just absorbing the yells. So yeah, I genuinely think it kind of stirs him on. I think he's living now on sheer willpower, and that's not a joke. I genuinely think he is. He's just. He's still razor sharp, he's still right there, and he's just forcing his lump of flesh to keep carrying him.
Where was he this year? For those of us who were not as lucky as you to be perched on that balcony looking down on the arrivals out back of the hotel, we never saw.
You were down with the.
I was down with the proletariat. But you got a view of when you got the one shot of Kissinger, right? A mirror shot.
No, I got a couple of shots. I just put one on Twitter actually. There's my favorite photograph of the whole conference. It's a lovely little moment of Eric Schmidt was standing in the doorway waiting for ages. I was going, what's he waiting for? He was waiting for Henry Kissinger, and the two of them, you see them all sort of crowding into the same shot. And I see Eric Schmidt as a kind of heir to Kissinger within the kind of Bilderberg ideological power structure. And I've written a little bit about this year. And so they basically got into the same minivan and they headed off together. I'm assuming to meet Mike Pompeo, because they arrived back after a couple of hours, and then a few minutes later Pompeo arrives en masse, and so I assumed he was off for a chat with the one Secretary of State to another.
So for those of us who only saw Pompeo come in with the giant motorcade and then walk onto the boat, I think our impression was that he was only in town for that, but you think he was actually...
But he was there for... Well, he arrived in Switzerland in the morning, and he came into the Bilderberg Hotel some hours before before going on the boat trip. So he was there for a reasonable chunk of the day, yeah. Especially, in Secretary of State terms, he was there for quite a while.
It's interesting how you delve into Schmidt being some sort of heir to Kissinger, because I would think they're very different people with much different backgrounds. One's coming from pretty much the highest level of politics, and the other's coming from Silicon Valley.
They get on. I mean, there's a really good video online that you can see that Eric Schmidt, this is from about 5-6 years ago, Eric Schmidt invited Kissinger to Google, and he has a kind of, I think they call it a fireside chat, the two of them, and they chat together, and they've talked at various conferences. You can see, if you trace them together, you can see they're always meeting at conferences. There's various photographs, you can just see them together a lot. So they're kind of, and Kissinger talks a lot about AI now. Have a look at those interviews and statements he made. He's written about AI. So the whole Kissinger's, like Bilderberg, Kissinger is kind of open to technology in a way that you might think, he's 96 years old. He's not. No, he's absolutely thinking about this. He's always thinking, strategizing, and so I think Schmidt is a natural heir. Also, I was going to say, that what you can do at Bilderberg is see the kind of Schmidt's field of influence. You can see the people he's brought in, like Jared Cohen, and there's often Google executives here, and there's, for example, the New America kind of think tank. There's a guy from there, Peter Singer, and that's completely funded, well, not completely, heavily funded by Google and Eric Schmidt. So you can see he's got his people sort of around him. So there's various spheres of influence within Bilderberg. It's not a sort of monolithic thing, Bilderberg. There's patches of power and influence within it.
But then what, in the grander scheme of things, and back out in the world, what is Schmidt up to? He's made his billions. He's left Google. He's left Alphabet.
Has he left Alphabet? I think he's on the board.
Oh, he might still be on the board. Yeah. Okay,
so
I mean, you're far more up to date with all that than me. But yeah, I mean, so.
Well, I can tell you.
So what is he assembling this army of elites?
Well, army is the key word, because Schmidt is chairman of the Defense Innovation Board at the Pentagon, and he's also just become. They've launched a U.S. government advisory body on AI, and he's chairing that. He's heading that. So he's one of these people that kind of floats between the fringes of government, at the Pentagon, and obviously Google and tech. And these things have become really blurry and merged. So anyway, that's what he's doing. He's interested in the application of technology to people's lives and to warfare.
It's pretty fascinating. I've been hearing you talk a lot about Bilderberg in military terms, in a sense. Like, you've been talking about the militarization of everything.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, look at we saw Pompeo arrive. You know, you can see
Stoltenberg's there every year now.
Stoltenberg is there for he comes to Bilderberg for longer than he goes to NATO summits. Like, he's physically there for longer, and he's not the first NATO chief. You can look through the historical lists of the relationship between NATO and Bilderberg, and it's basically a kind of NATO summit in some ways. So yeah, it's absolutely militarized.
I see that in the sense that Turkey's included, albeit not the current political establishment in Turkey, but
the money.
I guess it's Coach.
Yeah.
He's the money man, the insider. Yeah. But to me, that That's interesting. It's another tie with NATO. It's kind of hard for me to view Bilderberg as something related to a military operation or a military unit.
I find it difficult not to.
But that's why I genuinely want to hear your perspective on this.
The head of the new NATO Stratcom Centre of Excellence, nice Orwellian name. Right, so look that up. He's here, and so what that is it's NATO's new unit, which is running strategic communications. So it's kind of floating around between social media, propaganda, and psychological operations. So it's kind of it's the kind of militarization of minds and speech and language and social media and interaction and all of that kind of thing, communications. So that's why it's Stratcom. Anyway.
So practically speaking, what's the impact on a Bilderberg meeting on, say, NATO or various defense operations or military? I mean, do we have any idea? Because people on a very simplistic level are out here screaming, "Oh, Pompeo, are you going to start a war with Iran?" And to me, it's utter speculation.
Well, look, for me, it's summed up by this. It's an amazing moment. I looked down. I was on my balcony. Sorry about that. I was on my balcony.
No,
I was looking down.
Grateful you had that balcony.
I was looking out to the balcony. There's a guy, and he had a yellow. He was a sort of Swiss gilet jaune, and this car came out. I'd just seen someone get out of it. I don't know who it was. Some prime minister or whatever got out of the car. Anyway, so this car, an empty black limousine, kind of Mercedes thing comes out, and the guy just shouts, "You are pure evil," at the car. And I'm thinking, who's he shouting at? He's shouting at a driver of an empty car, right? And it was perfectly wrong with the statement. But even if Henry Kissinger had been in the car, it would have been an absurd statement. So it's that kind of like just completely unnuanced take on something like Bilderberg or whatever, literally anything. That it's like, oh God, really? Come on, try and add a little bit of light and shade here. You are pure evil. Okay, fine. Can we row back from that a little bit?
That's why I appreciate your writing so much about. I mean, other than the humor and all the little insights, but with you, I get a feeling like we're separating facts from fiction. As a journalist, I don't want to come here and just start making blatant statements and speculating. Oh, they're plotting this, they're plotting that. Especially when I have the limited conversations I do, I'm not getting much of an impression that it's some.
Can I tell you something? It's reminded me of something else where a lot of it is a kind of overreach of skepticism, you might say. So people are kind of overreaching in what their concerns about this organisation, this event, all of those kinds of things. So it's a guy that was standing outside who he turned to me and he went, "Do you think they are really in there?" Right now. And I feel really, I get a kind of warm glow when I hear that, because what he's doing is the right thing. He's doubting. He's coming from the right place. He's not prepared to accept what he's told, but he's gone too far. He's in that kind of the edge of the kind of flat earthy thing where he's doubting. He's pointing in the right direction in terms of, you know what? I'm going to question everything. But it's like something's it really is happening. I've just watched Mike Pompeo walk in. It's okay. They're definitely in there.
I admit I've gone down that rabbit hole. Yeah, that rabbit hole is what brought me to Bilderberg. But yeah, literally, I've been reeled back, and some of my conversations with people here entail a lot of me trying to explain to them that I'm not full of animosity toward these people.
But it'd be foolish to be.
Like, I'm here as a journalist who's genuinely interested.
There's people in there you couldn't feel. There's Green Party politicians. There's just like there's some academics. If you were feeling antagonistic towards them, you'd be psychotic.
There was one lady who's the CEO of a green chemistry company who was so friendly with me, and she's now engaging with me on Twitter. She basically viewed the conference as a big marketing and networking opportunity.
Which it is.
It certainly is. I mean, it probably has a huge networking effect. But it's almost impossible now. Even though I've gone down that rabbit hole previously, it's almost impossible right now for me to get angry at these people.
Well, you've got to, because they're all in the same place doesn't mean they're the same thing. You know, it's so stupidly obvious. But you've got to be able to say, look, some guy that writes a book about Russia that they want to hear a kind of TED talk. You know, some sort of professor from whatever Harvard. He's not on the same level in any sense, morally or professionally, as the director of Lockheed Martin, who was also there. So, you know, obviously, I'm not about to stand up and defend the morals of some guy who sits on the board of Lockheed Martin, the world's biggest arms company. You know, fuck him. But it's not. You know, let's just pull these two people apart. Make sure you're shouting at the right car.
Yeah, I mean, you're shouting metaphorically. Like you're obviously not expressing a bunch of anger, but in your pieces you're focusing in a lot on these tech billionaires and the intersection between
Silicon. That's because it's moving that way. I mean, there's no question that since I think, well, there's always been. You know, you look back through the past in participants to Bilderberg, and obviously tech's been there. IBM has been a big player. You know, things like that. But now, since Craig Mundie, who was back then was within the leadership of Microsoft, he joined in I don't know, I'm going to say this wrong, 2003 maybe. I think he first came maybe then, and then a few years later he joined the steering. He was the first kind of Silicon Valley big player to join the steering committee, and he's still there. And you know, in his wake have come, you know, Peter Thiel, Eric Schmidt, now Alex Karp, Reid Hoffman goes a lot. You know, so there's a strong kind of core of power there within Bilderberg, which is Silicon Valley.
Kind of a random question, but what's up with Peter Thiel? Like,
I don't know.
Like, I mean,
something.
If there was one guy in the Bilderberg Group who appeals to me, I'm kind of a California contrarian. I'm from California. My personal politics are pretty libertarian. You say you're going to start seasteading, I say right on.
Right.
Like, I mean, he seems to me like the guy I want to have a chat with. Yeah. But what's up with... We try to interact with the guy, and he's stone cold, except for every once in a while he'll blurt something out. Like,
well, he's definitely one of the more interesting. Him and I in my Newsweek piece, I tried to suggest, because I kind of think that there's more or less two centers of power within the tech within Bilderberg. So this is like subset of subset, but Peter Thiel and Eric Schmidt are sort of emerging from it as centers of influence. I think that's fair to say with that. And I'm trying not to overreach, you know, because otherwise you become kind of stupid the moment you start.
Okay, so we discussed it a bit with Schmidt and his connections, direct or indirect, to high levels of the government. What about Thiel?
Oh God. Well, he set up back in. I'm going to get this wrong again.
We can fact check it.
Palantir,
later.
who he set up Palantir.
Yeah, he did.
Right?
Yeah.
But he set that up. So Alex Karp is now on the board of Bilderberg. He's kind of lieutenant who runs Palantir. So he set that up with, you know, funding from In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA sort of seed money thing in Silicon Valley. So for Palantir and the Pentagon and the US intelligence community, they're kind of very interwoven, and Palantir's just got an enormous Pentagon contract for something like $800 million, which Peter Thiel spent a long time lobbying. I think he may have even done this through the courts to open up this contract to Palantir, and which they then won. And anyway, so look, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but obviously any big tech company these days it folds over into intelligence, security, military kind of areas of interest and operations. So yeah, it's muddy.
Okay, but when you write these pieces where you're zeroing in on Thiel and Schmidt among Silicon Valley billionaires here, You really see them as top power brokers in the world? No problem. We're kind of blinded by the light, but it's truly a lovely view out here. Maybe you can see better from this angle. All right.
All you can do is kind of infer from meetings, board relationships, who's on the advisory group of what, with whom, all of that kind of thing. That's literally all you've got, unless you're actually in that world, which I know it might look to people as if we are kind of rolling with the Bilderberg Group. But in our first class lounge with a £3.50 bottle of wine. By the way, I know it's
pretty good. I'm not complaining about this first class.
It was on the shelf in Co-op, and the one thing under £50 in the whole city.
To me, it's the best deal in the city.
There we go. Anyway, all I'm trying to do is constantly say I have no idea. So it's just versions of that.
Me too. I find myself repeatedly when people online or in person are asking me about the ins and outs of Bilderberg, so many times I end up at some point in the conversation just saying I don't know, and I don't think it can get any more honest than that.
Well, as soon as somebody's telling you exactly that something is something, they're almost certainly wrong. I mean, that's a
yeah, but I hear it so often. I from people who attend, from people who cover it, from people who talk about it on YouTube. I hear them saying that they've got this agenda, that they're plotting world government, that they're doing this, and that, and ultimately, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not a useful position for any kind of researcher or anyone that's trying to have intelligent thoughts about something to come into something with a firm belief that you know what something is. Something is complex. It's such a huge history as Bilderberg. It goes back. You've got to trace it back almost before the Second World War. Let alone all of the post-war history.
Well,
I don't know the Transatlantic Alliance. It's a huge subject, right?
I mean, how does it trace back before World War II?
Well, because you've got people that were trying to figure out how to piece Europe together. As a kind of entity, longer than the 20s at least.
And they were involved, those people were involved in the formation of Bilderberg?
Not exactly, but there are people, the history of it, sort of moves through the Second World War.
The trend of the unification of Europe.
And figures within it, and I won't say any because I'll get all the names wrong, but nothing just starts. It's not like Bilderberg just went, and from nothing it just appeared. It's part of an ornate historical process that has all kinds of facets, all kinds of individual interest groups jockeying for position, whether it's you can just at the level of the intelligence services of the British and the European and the US, those interests. You've got the Dutch oil interests, they're huge, they're still huge at Bilderberg. You've got all kinds of different kind of manufacturing interests, finance, politics, it's all very mixed up, but you can't just say, it just starts now in 1954 or something. Anyway, so in other words, to suddenly pronounce, it's just this, it's just, if anyone says it's just anything, just is the wrongest word in the language. Nothing is just anything, even you.
Let's hope so.
But unfortunately, the problem is that having a kind of agnostic position towards something doesn't make for great.
It's not very sexy. Yeah, I suck on YouTube.
So you here's my YouTube video about how I'm not quite sure what something is. Great.
I'm discussing that with people every night. We get back way too late. We start editing and uploading videos way too late, and everyone's talking about their headlines, and they're asking me for help with their headlines, and it's kind of amusing because I'm actually a professional journalist. I'm trained in journalism. I've been writing headlines for years, but I can't write a headline worth a darn for YouTube because all they say is you've got to grab attention at all costs.
In other words, misrepresent your material.
Yeah, totally.
Yourself.
And I suck at that.
Yeah.
So I actually just uploaded a video of me in the hotel.
This is deep stuff, Josh. Right? You literally can't make a statement about anything without misrepresenting it in some form. So every statement is a misrepresentation, and with that,
well, I mean, it depends. It depends how you.
That's true.
Characterize.
It's true.
Like,
I didn't look at me.
Because oftentimes we resort to saying I'm speculating about this, or I believe, or this might be the case, which it might still be misrepresenting, but it's also a layer of honesty, I would say.
But look, it's a problem for anyone writing about anything. So I've written various things about Bilderberg, but obviously, in order to crystallize it into a piece, you have to shave off a few of the edges and and kind of make a few. I mean, I did some in the. Sometimes I do it knowingly, sometimes you do it unknowingly, but even if you're going to make a joke about something, you're going to have to kind of like force it into a kind of joke box form, and it's you're going to be like slightly false about the situation in order to make something funny about it. Obviously, this is the nature of the beast. But I don't, as long as we're kind of aware of that, and let's just go ahead talking bullshit.
Well, I from the limited writing I've done about Bilderberg.
Where are we?
This does not look like Lausanne, but it looks lovely nonetheless. From the limited writing I've done about Bilderberg, it's either been something that's kind of investigative, like I think I figured out when and where the conference.
That's the bullshit alarm. It just
don't read any of my writing about Bilderberg. the what's this boat called? The something Swiss. Yeah, they're calling bullshit on me. If I were to make the transition from covering Bilderberg primarily as a YouTuber to covering Bilderberg as a reporter producing long-form written content, what would be any advice for me?
God, well, I don't know. Well, A, I don't have any.
B, what do you mean you don't have any? You're the guy nowadays.
Sure. No, what I was going to say
humble as always, Charlie.
Humble as always. Right. What is very just to say, I'll say this about what you just said, which is the things that you and Dan and Luke and Max and everyone who's doing the kind of confrontational, Glenn, anyone who's putting a camera in anyone's face and making anyone say anything, it's embarrassing sometimes, but it's interesting because by throwing a little bit of grit into the gears, something comes up sometimes, and you get statements are made. People are caught off guard. The one that sticks in my mind, obviously, is when Luke confronted Tony Blair, and he was just like completely like and asked him a question about how useful Bilderberg was, and he replied and talked about being there, a thing which he'd lied to Parliament about. So that's a piece of.
It's gold.
Serious journalism. Luke at that point had exposed a former prime minister of the United Kingdom for lying when he was prime minister to Parliament about Bilderberg. That's a big deal. So that's the kind of thing. That's one example of it. But just having any kind of interaction with members and participants gets material. It's almost impossible. Not even if they don't say anything, you get something. But they often say something, and that's good. And by the way, not all of this would be completely short-circuited if they just had a press conference, because who's going to be running after David Petraeus, right?
Luke still would.
But it would be slightly foolish in a way, and that's come on. I'm not talking to you now, Josh. I'm talking to
and we had this conversation after Turin, but no, continue.
It would certainly short circuit a lot of the stuff that's being written about it, because you go, well, what interesting. I did my one confrontation this year.
You did I missed it. I
was out there in the trenches.
Is this on video?
I was no, it's not. I would never.
But you're an athlete, come on.
Monsieur de Castries, the president. The chairman of the Bilderberg Meetings Steering Committee, so a very senior member. He's vice chairman of Nestlé, on the board of HSBC, etc., etc., etc. He nipped out for a coffee or something really early on. This is right at the beginning. I just happened to be there, and I thought, oh, okay, here we go. So I went up and said, excuse me, sorry about this. Sorry, Monsieur de Castries, blah, blah, blah.
In very polite form. Very
polite. And he was perfectly polite with me. And I said, are you going to hold a press conference this year? And he says, you have everything on the website. Right? Which I think is a really interesting statement because it's...
Zanny Minton-Bedos basically said the same thing.
There's an idea, I think, which is wrong, which the Bilderberg Group has, which is that the website...
The website
has... That was just me slurring, that wasn't even a French accent.
Oh, I thought that was I thought that was the French accent.
No, I slipped into a French accent. Anyway, there's the idea that answers all journalistic needs, which is so palpably wrong that it's laughable. It's a risible statement.
To me, it was very sad to hear that from Ms. Minton-Bedos. She said the same thing, and she is a journalist.
Both of them are obviously on the board of on the steering committee of Bilderberg. It's clearly a position that they've got. It's a position that they kind of believe in, and it's obviously nonsense. That's what it always slightly amazes me that they can hold. These are highly intelligent people, far more generally speaking, far cleverer than you or I, right?
And in a lot of the cases, a lot more discipline. I would say.
I would say I would say that Henry Kissinger, aged 96, is smarter and works harder than I am, and do. So I can't even finish my sentence grammatically correctly. That's how far in advance he is of me. Anyway,
it's the supercomputers.
What I was going to say is the statement though is interesting when he says you have everything on this website. You know, you can actually pick that whole thing apart. You don't have everything on it. You know, the website is still, and it's a work in progress. When it came up back in where was it? Citrus 2010. It was like properly nonsense. It was just full of just like utter inaccuracies. And we've been constantly telling them, look, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And they change. This year I pointed out a misprint on the list, the official list. They misprinted you'd think you'd get this right, but on the official participant list I pointed out, they changed it. You know, so there's a kind of weird dialectic between us, the journalists, activists, whatever you call us, and them. And one of them is that the website has improved over the years from kind of constant critique from outside. It's got better, but it's still sort of nothing. You know, it's better. It's far better than nothing, but it's sort of like, you know, fine. But that's not really why. If they think that the website answers the question, why do you think Bilderberg is a problem, worth talking about, worth discussing, and worth critiquing, it doesn't get close to it. It's a list of names. If anything, it makes it more of a problem, more problematic.
Mysterious. Yeah.
Well, in a sense, you know, they're simply providing enough information to make it more problematic.
Did you read, I'm sure you did, the Washington Post and New York Times stories this year covering Pompeo's appearance here? It seemed to me like they regurgitated the website, but it seemed to me like had there not been all this information out there on the website now, that we wouldn't have gotten feature-length stories out of the New York Times and Washington Post.
But this is look, the problem is, you know, we were talking earlier, this is an extremely complicated body, a political body that has a long, you know, 70-ish, 65 plus year history, right? And the idea that their sort of 2-paragraph history on the website is everything you need to know about Bilderberg, you know what? You know, that's like saying, well, a dog has 4 legs. Yeah, great, well done. That that describes a dog at some level, but there's more to a dog than having 4 legs and a tail. there's more to Bilderberg than 2 paragraphs on the website. You know, obviously, right? But anyway, blah blah blah.
In the bigger picture, touching on something you were saying earlier, do you see Bilderberg as a piece within a larger puzzle? You get what I'm saying?
There's no puzzle. There's no puzzle. There's no spoon. A piece of what? No, you see, it's interesting because you framed it as a puzzle, as if there's a solution that you sitting there can go, oh, if I just get the pieces into the puzzle, I can solve it, and I will know. So yeah, I think you've framed the whole thing. You know, you're giving yourself a nightmare. Imagine if you thought it was a puzzle. You go, well, fuck, I've got to solve the puzzle. Shit, what's the solution? How do I? This doesn't fit. You're sitting there trying to force. There's no puzzle, Josh.
Yeah, I used to be forcing a lot.
Yeah.
Now not so much. But then again, there are always the questions pouring into us of what the heck is going on and how does this fit into the bigger picture. Maybe
bigger picture is a slightly softer metaphor.
That's true. That's true.
You know, so let's run with the bigger picture, not puzzle.
Okay, let's.
But again, you know, you can't. Bigger picture doesn't. It can't. It's not that
these are both very vague terms.
Yeah, but there's suggesting there's a picture that is the picture, as if you go, oh, there's the picture, right? So again, it's similarly doing the same thing, which is suggesting that there's a thing, the picture, which is if I just focus out, if I just pull back enough, I can see the bigger picture. And there's no the bigger anything. There's no the Charlie Skelton.
It just is.
Yeah, there's a kind of isness about it.
Isn't that a Clintonian expression, like a definition of is?
I'm just.
We're getting a little philosophical as we shuffle the deck on the not so Titanic. Anyway.
So yes, the isness of
Bilderberg. Maybe that's a good YouTube headline.
This goes back to what the guy said when he said to me, "Do you think they are really in there?" Right, and there has to be. So he's even questioning the isness of Bilderberg, and but then you might as well say, "Are you really there?"
Did you say that back to him?
No, I should have done. This is like, it takes me 3 days to 3 days to come up with a correct response.
That would have been the correct response.
Yeah.
Actually, I got that the other day. There are all these random people who show up with cameras, and the other day I was outside waiting on some participants to come out, and we're really shuffling things around. I'm cracking up as we continue on, but I mean, what can you say? So the other day I was standing outside the entrance, and these, I think they're locals anyway, some random people come up to me with a camera and they start asking me some questions about Bilderberg with a French accent and what I'm doing. And then comes the question, well, what is the problem?
Yeah.
And I responded, did I say there was a problem? And he was kind of taken aback by that. I don't recall saying there was a problem. When did I say there was a problem? But there's always, not always, but among a lot of people, there's this expectation that if we're standing out there reporting, photographing, confronting, that we're
well, hang on, wait, I'm disagreeing. I'm with them. They obviously there's a problem. Otherwise, why are you standing there?
Okay, go for it.
Because if there was no problem, you imagine you were standing just pointing your camera at a brick wall. Then someone might come up to you and go, what are you doing? What's your problem with this brick wall? And then you might have a difficult answer.
Well, to me, there's incredible mystique and intrigue about Bilderberg, and I'm trying to figure out what on earth is going on, and maybe there's some major societal problems related to it. Maybe not, I don't know.
You can have a problem with anything, even the brick wall, to go back to that. But
you and brick walls, I thought it was twigs, but
twigs is my main thing.
That's another story.
Sorry, it's just so stunning here, I have to say.
The view is incredible, as always. We're coming up on some city. Vevey, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, the problem for me, right? And you can.
That's
right?
You know what? There we go. There's the topic of this video. What is the problem of Bilderberg for you?
Well, it's something I've written about for. I just kind of skirt around a lot of the time, and I've written about it for. There's an organisation, Transparency International, that I've written.
Anti-corruption.
It's an anti-corruption thing, and I've written about the lobbying at Bilderberg as a kind of way into, as a way into the whole sort of set of issues around it. And it's the thing that kind of concerns me the most. It is that there are policymakers there, politicians and senior public officials, many of them elected, who are locked away with people who are, they're very, very, very high members of extremely powerful industrial, manufacturing, finance, lobby groups. Like, take a really good example is the European Round Table of Industrialists. So it's a hugely powerful manufacturing and industrial lobby group in Europe, and you just have to compare the list of the board of directors of that with the list of people going to Bilderberg, and they always go. There are always loads there, and the vice chairman of it, the guy from Titan Cement this year, is there, and you've got them, and you've got people that make policy. You've got the Irish finance minister. You've got various other kind of ministers of economics and infrastructure, all of that kind of thing. And it's what for me is problematic is having them there in a situation which is obviously a huge networking event, as we said. So it's partly that, partly it's discussions and over big issues, chewing over the kind of geopolitical, economic landscape of the transatlantic alliance and beyond, to China and to space, etc., etc. Right, so they're talking about the big issues, and then then they're having their banquets, there's drinks, there's putting back a few glasses of wine. There's there's the breakfast buffet. There's all of these kind of things. It's not it's a big thing that they're locked away at for that length of time, which is an extremely unusual length of time for all of them. And that's a whole other thing. The sheer length of time and commitment of it, and the people that go, that's a whole big deal for me. But and it's a point of interest. But for me, the problem is to see those politicians there, sort of, I guess, suggesting that they're just kind of absorbing, sort of like they're just seeing what I'm just plugged into this kind of expert discussion group kind of thing, which I guess is what they would say, but I just don't see it as appropriate. I really don't. In the same way, I don't see it as appropriate as some of the journalists are there doing that. You're not really a journalist if you're there and not reporting. It's kind of like, what are you doing? Do you think you're there because, like, either you're there providing information that they're interested in, They, again, I'm using the word they there, which is stupid. You've got to chunk it down. But let's just say the lobbyists or the CEOs of banks and huge organisations, huge businesses, whatever it is, whether it's an oil company or a car manufacturer, whatever. They're interested in information, so they're taking information from it, and they're also making sure there's the formation of a consensus, that sort of thing, and you're being fed and blah blah blah. You don't go in there as if you're kind of like as if you're completely immune and inert to all of the influences and interests around you. And if you do think that you're mad. So anyway, it's the mixture of all of these things. Sorry, I could.
I hear what you're saying, and this is
with no press oversight and no press conference and no kind of no oversight to the whole thing. Just all you've got is people coming out and going, Chatham House rule. Sorry, can't talk about it.
What you're describing reminds me of the basic definition of corruption, something along the lines of making use of public resources for private purposes. So, in this sense, you've got.
Well, don't say Chatham House rule, right? As if that's an answer to a question.
The Chatham House rules doesn't even preclude them from talking about this, right? They just can't disclose who said it.
Well, it's like the Yorkshire Ripper saying, "Oh, sorry, hammer rule. I just used the hammer rule there, so that's sorry, you can't touch me because I used the hammer rule on that woman."
It does seem very immature on their parts.
Just saying, Chatham House rules sound great, doesn't it? Oh, sorry. Obviously, I can't speak Chatham House rule.
So is that why a lot of these guys have gone silent completely, because they realize how ridiculous the Chatham House rules excuse sounds?
Well, I'm not even saying it's completely ridiculous. There would be situations in which you would want to be able to discuss things, blah, 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 blah.
Fair enough.
But not when you're the Irish finance minister and you're talking to the chairman of Goldman Sachs International. And the other guy next to you is the CEO of Goldman Sachs International, and over there is the chairman of HSBC, and that's the chairman of Banco Santander. And
one of the guys rotated from president of the European Commission to Goldman Sachs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, look, that's the whole. Okay, that's the other thing, which is the revolving doors thing, which is a huge problem. Huge problem. It really is. It's madness to think that Barroso does all of that. I mean, you've got Sir John Sawyers, right? So years through as a British civil servant, ends up director of MI6. You can see him. You've got photographs of him at Bilderberg in Copenhagen, talking in earnest and long talks to the then chairman of BP. He leaves MI6, goes straight onto the board of BP, right? And I actually personally don't think you should. I think there should be much more stringent rules limiting that kind of leap. Well, a leap, by the way, which was kind of prototyped by Henry Kissinger. He absolutely invented the hop from.
So many of these guys are following in his footsteps. Petraeus. When you're discussing rules, I mean, Barroso, he technically followed the EU rules, right? Like there was a 2-month window or something. Which is so representative of how Bilderberg.
But there was actual outrage over that.
Yeah, there was outrage. Yeah.
But you could go. Petraeus. Petraeus is now the kind of pet of Henry Kravis at KKR. He's just gone to Wall Street. He's just he's cashing in.
I mean, so maybe the average viewer, it sounds kind of crazy that Petraeus, the former head of the CIA, is the pet of some guy in Bilderberg who most of the world has never even heard of.
Well, yeah. Although if you've watched Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, you get some idea of Henry Kravis. One of my few joys at Bilderberg is taking photographs of Henry Kravis not smiling.
With his wife, who's also a billionaire.
Well, she's much more senior than he is. But now you're getting to the real nitty-gritty. She's on the board of Bilderberg. They put that on for the first time. They put board.
Yeah, I saw. I'm confused because they shifted on the website from steering committee to board. What's up with that?
Well,
and the board is much smaller than the steering committee.
That's the inner circle of the inner circle.
Do we know that, or are we just guessing?
We've always known that.
Okay.
Well.
I haven't. I'm not on your level, buddy.
Some of us knew that, Josh. There's a.
Mesdames, Messieurs, dans un instant, nous arriverons à Bully, à la pompe de débarquement pour Bully, à la pompe de la sortie.
Thank God you're recording this, Josh. This is gold.
It is.
This is gold.
It is, because all the conversations we have during Bilderberg are so rushed. You've got to run back to the room to type. We've got to run back to do the edits, and we get on autopilot mode. Even when we're confronting these guys, where we get on autopilot mode, and we kind of stop. We put the philosophical part aside.
The board. We're talking about
the board. Yeah.
The board.
I didn't even know about the board until 1 week ago, 5 days ago.
So what is it? Mrs. Kravis, Henri de Castries,
I forget.
Wallenberg, and Halberstadt.
Just scoot in a little bit, please.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So yes, there's a So there's inner circles within the inner circle within the so there are the people that just come to the.
But Teal's not.
No, he's on the steering committee.
Oh, there. I mean.
But he's not in the board. But that. Sorry. What's interesting is that the fact they put that on as a thing, they kind of acknowledged its administrative status.
So you think that's an honest acknowledgement that the people in the board are the inner circle of the inner circle, or is it a diversion?
At some level, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's factually the case.
Well, they're definitely important. If you're on the board of the Bilderberg Group, you're a somebody for sure.
I think what it does is it actually provides a little sort of bit of structure for you to be able to look at the group and at the conference and go, oh, okay, I sort of understand roughly how it works, blah blah blah. But what they don't talk about is the autumn meeting.
Which I don't know a thing about. I've heard rumors of it.
Well, there's video of the autumn meeting back a while ago now, and I think it was in Italy. So, yeah, that's when the steering committee meets in the autumn, and the group says that the conference is its only is the only thing it does. But there is this steering committee meeting to which people that aren't on the steering committee also come. So it's not. They have a kind of mini conference.
How do we know that?
There's literally video of it.
Okay.
Of people arriving at a thing in Italy, going, and then they're walking into the thing, going that there happened to be a journalist who happened to be following Mario Monti, and so happened to be filming there, and so they're going, why is everyone going into this venue? I don't understand. And then literally just boom, Bilderberg after Bilderberg, Bilderberg. And other people as well. And it's like, and they all went, oh yes, I don't know why I'm here. I'm not sure what this is. I'm just here. I'm not sure what this is. Anyway, blah blah blah. That's a good bit of video.
I've got to watch that video, but it's.
So yeah, it's Bilderberg 2019. Wrap it up, Josh.
It was not exactly what I was expecting. I was hearing a lot about everyone going green. I didn't bring this up with you until this point, but I check out Schmidt's Twitter feed, and he's tweeting about like the necessity of acknowledging climate change and sustainability are on the topics list. And it just, from all my conversations with people, it seemed like if they're gonna talk, there's like a 50% chance they're gonna say something about climate change. And I don't know if it's just a PR move, like they want to come across as the benevolent elites who are trying to save the world, or what. I don't know.
You might be more. I think you've just more or less described it. Yeah. I think it's a useful thing to say.
Do these guys really believe? Are they like climate change zealots?
Like the chairman of BP.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's one of the questions.
Chief Financial Officer of Royal Dutch
Shell. That's
Shell.
one of the questions I asked the green chemistry. Like, have you spoken with any of these oil execs in there? She said no.
Yeah, and the huge manufacturing system, the arms company chairman and directors. Yeah, I don't. Obviously, you've got to be careful not to be too cynical. However, I don't know. The idea that you can't make much of a strong case for a lot of the people there to be that interested in sustainability.
Some of them you can, but a lot of them for sure, no way.
So you're either they're just kind of sniffing the breeze, or it's just just bullshit.
That was my one takeaway that I haven't brought up in any of my coverage until this point. Well, what about you? What's one major takeaway from Bilderberg 2019?
Swiss food is terrible.
What even is Swiss food other than fondue? Which you probably didn't eat any of, did you?
Talking about sustainability, right? I went to the garage shop, just where I can afford to shop in Montreal, and to buy snacks for the evening, and I spent like £50, right? And at the end of it, my waste paper bin was just full of plastic, and I'm
I had so many plastic bags by the end of the week because
So-
I'm eating at a co-op.
It's not a. I don't think Switzerland seems particularly on board with the let's try not to have quite so much plastic in the environment.
They seem
movement.
above it as opposed to on
Yeah.
board.
I don't know. Anyway, look, who knows? I don't want to be too cynical, but has a little whiff of greenwashing about it.
That was my take. What's your one last thought about Bilderberg?
I thought that was the thing about the Swiss food.
It was okay. You brought that up. I brought up the greenwashing. Then you technically brought in the term greenwashing, and then you used Swiss food.
Oh, I'll tell you what it'd be. The interest in space is there on the agenda. That's a whole other conversation which we're not going to have. But the militarization of space, and that's going to be more and more of a thing. I think you'll see in forums, fora.
I say fora. I don't know about you.
I say potato, and I think it's something we're going to see more and more of in fora, such as the Bilderberg conference, and it'll be fun. We could watch the kind of like on the moon. Look up to the moon, you'll see the.
So Henry Kissinger's future is up in space. Or is he a mortal man?
Well, I would say that he's going to probably.
Hold on. All right, here we go. Henry Kissinger.
I hope that Henry Kissinger has a long, happy, and fulfilled future. Because I think if you wish him anything evil, then you're not helping.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the coverage from this year's Bilderberg Conference. Leave any comments below if you'd like to see something different next year and in the future. And au revoir from somewhere on Lake Geneva in Switzerland.